All right, well, I think we'll get started with some preliminaries, and I do anticipate a small crowd today, but as folks trickle in, we'll continue to let them in. So welcome to this iteration of Coffee Chats by the Boston Region MPO's Transit Working Group. We're calling this Marketing and Launching the Berkshire Flyer with our special guest, Eddie Sporn, who I will introduce more in a moment. Logan, if we could go to the next slide, please. All right. So you are invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status, or background. Next slide, please. Just going to go over a few guidelines for this meeting. All participants have joined the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation. To participate in the discussion, please select the raise hand function. You can find this by clicking either on the participants button at the bottom of the screen, and a window will pop up with a raise hand button at the bottom, or in the reactions button in the toolbar, and we'll then call on you to participate. If you're on the phone, you can use the function *9 to raise your hand. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact Logan Casey via the Zoom chat box. Email him at lcasey@ctps.org, lcasey@ctps.org, or call on the phone at 857-702-3706. Next slide, please. In terms of accessibility, this meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 Level AA standards and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, again, please contact Logan at lcasey@ctps.org or 857-702-3706. Next slide, please. All right, so we have a very small group today, so I figure we can do this verbally instead of how we usually do it in the chat. If folks would like to introduce themselves, your name, your affiliation, and your pronouns, if desired, I'll start. My name is Sandy Johnston. I'm a senior transportation planner with the Boston Region MPO, and I manage this transit working group. So Eddie, would you like to go next?
Sure. My name is Eddie Sporn. I'm an independent consultant living in the Berkshires in Western Massachusetts.
All right, and welcome. Emily, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone, Emily van der Westeen. I'm the Director of Fixed Route and Marketing at the Metro West Regional Transit Authority in Framingham.
All right, glad you can join us, Emily. All right, Lisa.
Hi, I'm Lisa Weber. Pronouns are she, her, and I am the Transportation Compliance and Quality Assurance Coordinator here at the Human Service Transportation Office.
All right, good to see you, Lisa. And Logan, I know you're having issues with audio, but if you would like to introduce yourself as best you're able.
Yeah, hi there. My name is Logan Casey. I'm the administrative coordinator working with the Boston MPO. So if you have any questions, feel free to message me. And my pronouns are he and his.
All right, thanks, Logan. All right, so we'll have other folks introduce themselves if and when they do come in. But for now, let's just jump right into it because I'm excited for us to hear a little bit more from Eddie about the Berkshire Flyer and his experience with kind of marketing and talking about and building a new transit service. So Logan, if we could go to the next slide. All right, Eddie, I'm just going to hand it over to you because I know you don't necessarily have slides. We're going to do this low tech, but I know you have a lot to say. So just go for it. You are muted.
Like I told Sandy earlier, a lot of people sometimes prefer that I stay muted, but for the sake of this discussion, it probably makes sense for me to hear what I have to say. So I am by education a city planner. I have a degree in city planning from Harvard GSD, Kennedy School, way back long ago. And after many years of doing planning work and then administrative work and working for a hedge fund in New York City, I moved up to the Berkshires 10 years ago in 2012. And one of the things that a big issue at that time when we got up here was a group that was trying to advocate to bring back the train service between Great Barrington or Pittsfield, Massachusetts, and New York City. This was a train service that was run by the New Haven Railroad going back many years ago, which ended in 1971. And so there was a group that was trying to resurrect this service. I looked at the information that they were providing. I did some back of the envelope calculations and just thought about, using, I guess, my planning background and my understanding of regional transportation and geography, which I have a degree in also, and quickly realized that this plan made no sense whatsoever. So I started to look around for another way to get between New York City and the Berkshires, because I felt it was extremely important for the economic development of the Berkshires. Tourism is hugely important to the Berkshires. The connection with New York City is historic. It goes back generations, back to the Gilded Age. There's a huge second home community here that's primarily from people from New York City area, including New Jersey, the metropolitan area. So I knew that reestablishing a rail link between New York City and the Berkshires would be extremely important, and I ultimately believe it's very, very popular. So I looked around and did some analysis, and I found a route. And coincidentally, back in 2014, some guy named Sandy Johnston found the same route. Afterwards, after I sort of came up with this idea, I did some additional digging, and sure enough, there was a blog post back when Sandy was at University of Albany. Is this correct, Sandy?
Yes, definitely pre my time at CTPS.
Right, which basically, it was a discussion about the same train service that was being proposed to go through Connecticut up to the Berkshires, and basically trashing it and saying that it would make no sense economically, any based on any criteria. And Sandy had proposed basically the same link that I had proposed 3 years subsequent to that. So to a certain extent, Sandy deserves some credit here also. So in 2017, I approached a state senator, Adam Hines, who represents Western Massachusetts in the Massachusetts State Senate, with this idea to basically use the rail line between New York City and Albany, the Hudson line, as the backbone to provide service to the Berkshires. So the trains would come up the Hudson and then would make a right turn and eventually go to the Berkshires via New York State. And actually, of the entire trip, only 11 miles would be in Massachusetts. The rest of the trip would be in New York State, excuse me. I somehow convinced Adam Hines that this made sense. And essentially, Adam ran with it. He was able to get money to study, to get Mass DOT to do a study. So there was a preliminary study done in 2018. There was another study done in 2019 that further sort of honed the various options. And basically, we had a green light to run a pilot program in 2020, in the summer of 2020. So the pilot was going to be modeled sort of like the Cape Flyer, which started off as it still is a seasonal service, but it started off as a pilot project. And so the model was that the train would run from Memorial Day to through leaf season in 2020 on the weekends, and that would be the first year of the pilot. Well, obviously that didn't happen because of COVID. It didn't happen in 2021. And it wasn't going to happen in 2022, but sort of miraculously in April of 2022, just this past April, everything sort of came together, and all of a sudden the train was going to run this year. It was not going to run from Memorial Day because there was not enough time, but it was going to run on a truncated schedule starting the weekend after the 4th of July and run through Labor Day weekend. And so that's what happened this summer. There was a train that came up on Friday from New York City, and a train that left Pittsfield, Massachusetts on Sunday afternoon and went back to New York City. And so this was the first year of a 2-year pilot program, which has been funded by the state of Massachusetts. So I was the project manager back in 2020. The ill-fated 2020 pilot, which was eventually scuttled by COVID. I left after the train wasn't going to run in 2020, and I knew it wasn't going to run in 2021. I stopped working for this group that was involved with the Berkshire Flyer. And then I got the call again this year when it became clear that the pilot was going to run. They needed someone to help coordinate it. So I was hired, and my formal role was, or the name that I was given was ambassador. So I was supposed to, in addition to keep track of some data and do some marketing and to do some publicity. My job was to be at the station on Friday to greet the passengers arriving, and on Sunday to say goodbye tearfully to the passengers that were going back to New York City. And so that's what I did over this past summer. I did a number of different things, and I have to say the most fun thing was the ambassador thing. And I don't know, Sandy, if you've passed around that New Yorker article that was written about.
I have not, no, but if you have a link to it, feel free to.
Yeah, I will send you a link. So I knew somebody at the New Yorker, and I thought it would be great publicity for the Berkshire Flyer if there would be an article about how a group of people, myself included, and the state senator and a bunch of other people, advocated for this train that hasn't been running since 2011, not 2011. Let me get since 1991, excuse me. Got 1971 and got the train running again. And so I contacted my friend, and then the New Yorker ended up running an article, which ended up being primarily about me as the ambassador. It was sort of a humorous article about my greeting people and schmoozing with the customers, which I guess I did, and I enjoyed. But I found it to be a super satisfying feeling because just it's so difficult now to actually see off people and to greet people when they arrive at terminals, whether it's a train station or particularly an airport. You just can't do it anymore. I see you sent the article, the link, Sandy. Thank you very much. So it was wonderful. And it was very, in New England, we celebrate, particularly here in the Berkshires, we celebrate Norman Rockwell, the famous American painter of traditional American scenes. And so, family and gathering and greeting people, greeting long lost relatives is one of his favorite themes. So it was a very Norman Rockwell scene every Friday and every Sunday as people came in and left. So that's essentially what I did. So let me get into the marketing and some of the other weightier issues or meatier issues. So because the green light was given so late, there was very little marketing that was done prior to the flyer actually starting to operate. Amtrak did do some advertising. So we did get some, when we did surveys, people did notice that there was advertising that was done. But primarily, people heard about it through word of mouth. People in the Berkshires who had connections with New York City, people from New York City wanted to come up. They said, "Hey, you can take the train." So it was not until the train began running the first weekend after the 4th of July. It wasn't until July 12th that the New York Times travel section, or there was an article about the Berkshire Flyer. So we did notice a significant increase in ridership after that New York Times article. And then there were a number of articles in the press, in travel magazines throughout the summer about the Berkshire Flyers. So one of the issues that we had with marketing was that there really wasn't a concerted effort. There wasn't a coordinated effort, and I won't go into all the politics, but there were certain political issues between the sort of the regional chamber of commerce. There's no county government, as we know, in Massachusetts, and so there's no county, there's no sort of public county chamber of commerce or economic development agency. There is a private one that's sort of subscriber based. and they were doing their thing. The city of Pittsfield had COVID money, had COVID relief money, and they were using that to fund their own marketing, which included marketing the Berkshire Flyer. So there was actually two different websites that were sort of not coordinated with one another. So, there's a lot of things that need to be corrected going into year two, marketing being one of them. So do you want me to continue, Sandy, or you want me to stop for any questions? How do you want me to?
We can stop here and see if anybody has any questions, and then if there are no questions, I'm happy to have you continue telling the story.
Okay.
So Emily, Lisa, anybody, and do you have any questions at this point?
Not at this time.
At least I haven't put people to sleep. Somebody.
No, I'm enjoying the storytelling.
Okay.
Yeah, no, this is a really interesting story. No
Thank you.
questions yet.
Thank you, Emily. So let me take this, because I actually have a little thing here, a couple of things. Let me take this thing down on my other screen. So so it's kind of, here's where we're at with the Berkshire Flyer. So as I mentioned, it's a 2-year pilot. The pilot for the first year ended on Labor Day weekend. We have not gotten official ridership information from Amtrak yet. To me, it's beyond comprehension why it should take so long to get, number one, ridership information, number two, expense information, how much it cost, revenue and expense to run this service. It's now, we're into November now, and we still don't have this information. So there has not been any sort of follow-up. We wanted to do a press conference and to, extol what I think has been a very big success for the Berkshire Flyer this summer. Again, considering the constraints, the lack of marketing that we were sort of faced with, but we haven't done that yet because we really don't want to use unofficial figures. But I will, since we're a small group, and since we're all professionals and we're not going to tell our friends this information, and
I will caution you, Eddie. We do plan to post the video of this.
Okay.
On YouTube.
Okay. Well, so I will just tell you that these are all very unofficial numbers that we have gotten, and so I disavow and I make sure that everybody knows that these are not the official numbers that we are going to get from Amtrak. But basically, we had over the course of the summer, we sold over 900 tickets over a 8-weekend running season. We had at what our peak was 129 tickets that were sold on a weekend, and our low point was the second weekend of the service, where we had only 60 tickets. So these are round trip tickets. These are tickets going one way, then the other way. So in terms of on-time service, it was generally good. One of the infrastructural issues that we face is that it's a single track line west of Pittsfield, except for one passing zone between Albany and Pittsfield. So there was one weekend where, for whatever reason, the passing track was not available. And so there were two trains. The train that was going to go to New York City was held in Pittsfield for an hour and a half until two trains came through from the west, a long CSX freight train and the Amtrak Lakeshore Limited. So other than that one particular glitch, I would say overall we were close to meeting, having people come in the middle, at 7:15, 7:20 in the evening, when they were scheduled to arrive at 7:14. So that was a positive thing. But one of the real issues that we had is that we were given this schedule by the state of Massachusetts when they negotiated the running of the pilot last April with CSX. And so a lot of people, we've done surveys. 80% of the respondents were not happy with arriving Friday so late. They much prefer arriving either earlier on Friday or even on Thursday. They didn't have a problem with leaving Sunday afternoon, but the Friday arrival time clearly was something that was not popular. And we hope to prevail next year with Mass DOT to figure out some way to move the time up on Friday or have people come in on Thursday. That's very much going to depend on Amtrak. Obviously, these are Amtrak trains. The pilot is an extension of a regularly scheduled train between New York and Albany. As of now, I think they're running 2 to 3 trains a day less than they did before COVID, primarily due to what I've been told is staffing shortages. So we don't know yet what's going to happen next year and whether there'll be more opportunity to change the schedule. The second big challenge is that at this particular point, we have no funding beyond next summer. So you guys know the Massachusetts budget runs from July 1st to June 30th. So we have funding in the current budget, which is FY23, to run the train next summer, in summer of 2023, but there's no funding after that. And our goal, and my goal from the very beginning, is not to have a summer service like the Cape Flyer. It's to have a year-round service, whether it's twice a week, thrice a week, or even daily. That's still to be determined, but obviously not just a summertime service, because the Berkshires is very different than the Cape. We have a year-round economy. We have year-round tourism, and so the goal is year-round service. And so, but we have there's no data right now. There's nothing that will give us any sense of what's going to happen past next summer. So that's one of the real challenges we face. The other challenge we face is that I mentioned earlier, and that this gentleman by the name of Adam Hines, who was the state senator, championed this from the very beginning. Adam's gone. He's left the state senate, and he's now the executive director of the Edward Kennedy Foundation. And so his successor will hopefully be elected next week. We really have no experience with him, and we don't know how vociferous a supporter of the train service he is. The other members of the legislative delegation from Western Massachusetts, have been positive about the Berkshire Flyer, but no one has advocated like Adam has. It has been one of his primary projects since he went into the state senate, and I would say without him, this probably would not have happened, or surely wouldn't have happened in the time frame that it's happened. So that's sort of up in the air. I guess on the positive side is that there's a new state governor who will be starting sometime next year. And I presume there'll be a new Secretary of Transportation, possibly, maybe even a new rail administrator, possibly. And to the extent that if the governor, that if Maura Healey is in fact the governor, she has made some very, very positive statements about rail expansion, and particularly supporting the Berkshire Flyer and East-West Rail, which would connect Boston with Albany, not just Pittsfield, but go right across Massachusetts into Albany. So, that's a positive look at outlook if the state legislation, if the state government changes. So, I don't know whether I could talk for 2 hours, Sandy, and I'm sort of sensitive to sort of running on and on and on. I don't know if there's anything else that people want to know about. As I said, we need, the marketing needs to be cleaned up. We need to have a concerted marketing effort, including a website, one website. Whether it's similar to the Cape Flyer, there are so many models. I'm looking over a plan that I put together for the future, and number one is a website that will really be able to market the Berkshire Flyer and give people the opportunity to go off and get their tickets there, to find out what kind of attractions there are, special events, et cetera, et cetera. I think the Cape Flyer, from my perspective, does a great job of marketing. Their email campaigns are always funny and interesting, and I like their website. But there are many other websites to choose from, and we're looking at. I want to look at other marketing opportunities such as wrapping the cars, having a bicycle car. I've actually talked to people at the MBTA about the possibility of getting a bicycle car to attach to the Berkshire Flyer, which I think would be a wonderful way to attract bicyclists to come up to the Berkshires and spend a weekend or even a week bicycling around. So there's a lot of challenges that lie ahead. I'm super committed to the project. I'm currently not working as my consulting ended at when the Berkshire Flyer service ended in September. I'm hopefully will rejoin when sort of everything gets together and there's funding for the position of project manager, director, whatever they want to call it. And I'm happy to be ambassador again. I love the meeting of the people and talking to people and having them talk about train service and the importance of it. When you talk to people who use the train, and particularly the young people, that was one of the big surprises. The demographics were clearly skewed to people under 40, and that was a really that surprised everybody. We kind of thought that there would be a lot of older people, over 40 people, that would take the train, but the vast majority of people, 60 to 70% actually, were people that were under 40 years old. So that's a real positive thing. So.
All right, well, this is fantastic. And Eddie, I want to be conscious that you said you need to go 4:45. So we have 15 minutes. What I'd like to do now is, see if anybody has questions for you directly. And then I actually had some discussion questions that I thought it might be interesting for you to answer, but also Emily and Lisa to hear from you on those questions as well. So if either of you has questions for Eddie, feel free to throw that out there right now.
I'm not great at retaining facts while actively listening, so I'm definitely going to go back and look up all of the details. My immediate reaction was, ooh, because my family's in New York. So, and then just thinking like what you said from a marketing perspective, and it coming down to, how do you convince people that your product, your good or service is meeting their needs? And I, of course, flew into a million directions on how to convince people that a train like this is going to meet their needs and what they are. Excited to hear what you said about the bicycle car, talking about the year round. So I guess that's not so much a question, it's more of a compliment. And especially because what I do here now in PT1 transportation, I get questions from everyone you could think of how to get from point A to point B if they can't or don't drive, like for any reason at all. Ours is medical transportation. So it's any information that I can kind of have in my tool chest when I get those calls or emails is helpful. So I will definitely go back and look up all the details of what you're talking about. I clicked on the article. I will read that. And just thanks for what you do.
I appreciate that, Lisa. Yeah, there was, like I said, the talking to people, particularly a lot of the young people that I spoke to, basically everybody's younger than me, that I spoke to over the summertime, they were, the idea of getting into a car and driving from New York City to the Berkshires made no sense to them. I mean, it just seemed like, why did it take so long? Why are we doing this now? Why wasn't this done? And what about over the winter time? How am I, can I go skiing up there? I mean, these were questions that were asked. So, it's a 4-hour trip, which is not, it's a pretty lengthy trip. It's not the most direct route, since it goes up through Albany and then heads sort of in the southeast direction to Pittsfield. But one of the advantages, one of the really important reasons why Sandy thought of using the Hudson Line and then I thought of using the Hudson Line is that it is constantly it is slated for improvements. It is slated to there's a whole list of different capital projects that are on the books, some of which are funded, some of which are not, that will reduce the travel time between New York City and Albany, which will obviously then reduce the travel time to the Berkshires. And then there's even a possibility of one day, electrifying that corridor and making it into a true high-speed corridor, which I think that economically is justifiable, but we'll have to see about that. But the positive reinforcement that we received was great, and even the local newspaper. So one of the kind of surprises, or one of the disappointments, I guess I should say, is that the Berkshire Eagle, which is the local newspaper here, which is pretty highly respected, from the very beginning, they were very, at best, they questioned the viability of by train, just the concept of going up through New York State to get to Massachusetts made no sense to them. It's like the ideal thing is to go up through Connecticut, because it's just it looks like it's straighter, and it looks cleaner, and so they've been negative and not supportive. But this summer, at least for the first couple of articles that they published, they were relatively positive. There was, their optimism was guarded, and they didn't wholeheartedly proclaim this to be, something that's really going to possibly be a game changer for the Berkshires. But they at least were not as negative as they had been in the past. So, and because local support is very important. I mean, in addition to getting the elected officials, we need some of the big employers of the Berkshires, the medical establishment, some of the high-tech people that are here, and all the attractions that are here, including Tanglewood and Masmoka. They need to be behind this and lobby it, particularly to get this thing into a year-round operation as opposed to just a summertime operation.
I'm just going to break in here with a question of my own, which I think you and I have talked about before, which is, have you or anybody else associated with the Berkshire Flyer effort had any contact with New York State DOT, given that as you said, the train does run through New York State on its way up, and there is a possibility of, for example, adding a stop in like Chatham, which is itself a second home destination. A lot of travelers between there and New York City, and you could be adding a little bit of ridership that way at a relatively minimal expense, since the train is already doing it.
Right. So that's a great question, Sandy. And I have, well, let me rephrase that. Before the Berkshire Flyer was actually a funded proposition, I had reached out to a number of people in New York State and Columbia County in particular, in the Chatham area, and told them about my idea and what I hoped would be the possibility of doing a station in Chatham to try to get them interested. But it was I was sort of told at some point that Mass DOT is the people that need to make this connection with New York State. And so during the feasibility studies, there was supposedly discussion with New York State DOT about the Berkshire Flyer, but I was never privy to them. But I have been dealing with Empire State, the Empire State Rider Passenger Association, ESPA, and they have coordination, or they work with the New York State DOT or the New York State legislature. So hopefully, particularly with the East-West Rail and the idea that there's going to be now an effort to improve rail service between Albany and Boston. And obviously the Berkshire Flyer will travel over a section of that, that there will have to be that coordination. And I'm also hoping that one of the ideas that I've floated is the idea of, I mentioned earlier that the entire section between Albany and Pittsfield is a single track except for one passing track zone. And that one of the first things that we perhaps can happen as a part of the East-West is to start double tracking. that particular segment, because it's sort of the path of least resistance. It's mostly rural area, and the infrastructure is already there to support double tracking. So it would be one of the things where, to prove to people that Massachusetts and New York State is serious about this, to start double tracking the section west of Pittsfield, and see whether that can become the first part of the process of doing east-west rail. So we'll see where that goes.
Very cool. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, one of the lessons I learned from my time in Albany was certainly that New York State DOT is not the easiest entity to work with.
I would say my experience with Mass DOT has been somewhat uneven, but ultimately they have delivered for us, and they have been helpful. And I'm just hoping that under a new administration, they'll be even more aggressive in their advocacy for rail service, or expanding rail service in Massachusetts.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think at this point, I'd like to skip to the prepared questions, because I'm actually interested in hearing from Lisa and Emily on this as well. Thank you, Logan. So what marketing and publicity strategies have you found helpful or less helpful? Do marketing and publicity strategies differ if you're using between new services and promoting existing ones? How can marketing and publicity address barriers to transit use? And how can marketing and publicity best integrate with and support other departments at a mobility provider, such as a transit authority or a TMA or any other mobility provider you might imagine? So I'm interested really in hearing from any of you on this.
I'll just jump in on the first one. I really liked and was just kind of taking notes about how, Eddie, you mentioned how you were like the ambassador for this new program. And it seems like that really was the biggest contribution to the success of the new service. And I've kind of found that in my own work here at the Metro West Regional Transit Authority. Our previous administrator, Ed Carr, I feel like I always heard him say this, was you build routes one rider at a time. And I really have found that to be so true. I feel like that gets lost in a lot of marketing campaigns and work that a lot of authorities do in promoting new services, is really that boots on the ground work and actually going out and making connections with your riders, and talking to them face to face and hearing out their whether it be their frustrations, their concerns, or how happy they are with the services. I really think that makes a world of a difference. We did a lot of that when we launched our micro transit program in Wellesley, which has turned out to be really successful. We previously had a fixed route service, and we replaced it with the new micro transit service. And so what I did when we ran both services at the same time for about a month, and I sat on the bus and wrote it, at different times during the days, and actually talked to the people and explained to them one-on-one how to use the new service, how to make the transition. That way there was, no confusion to people, or people weren't really feeling like they were being left with no options. And I really think that just kind of made all the difference, just that face-to-face connection.
Absolutely. The a lot of people told me that that no one has ever greeted them at a train station before.
Yeah.
It made it special. And as a matter of fact, on Sundays, I went out and I bought apple cider donuts out of my own pocket and served it to people. I bought like 2 or 3 dozen apple cider donuts every Sunday. And we also had some other giveaways that some of the local stores gave us. We had bottled water and stuff like that. And to New Yorkers, if you want to give them something free, they immediately think you're trying to take them for something. So I had a lot of people saying, "What are you talking about? Free? The bottle of water is free? Come on, give me a break." forget about it, or whatever whatever New Yorkers say. When I was in New York, when I was a New Yorker, I used to say stuff like that. It is really important. I mean, particularly, to get a service started, you want people there, and you want people to talk to people about what they're thinking, what they like, what they don't like. The human connection is very important. I hope to do it again next summer. At a certain point, when things sort of settle, then it's not going to be necessary. But we have a mailing list now of 150, 200 people who have given us their emails, and we're going to keep them up to date on what's going on. And we want to be able to do some giveaways and things like that, similar again to what the Cape Flyer has done, which I think has been from my perspective seems a very successful marketing campaign. I hope next summer the biggest problem we're going to have is how do we deal with the capacity? How do we deal with all the people that want to come up? Because there will be additional, we will be doing marketing well in advance, and word of mouth has spread already, and so we hope to have the happy problem of people yelling at us because they can't get a ticket.
Yeah.
So
That's the goal.
Right. So Sandy, I'm looking at my time. It's 4:43. I need to get out of here. I'm sorry to leave, but I have
no problem at all. I know that is your timeline, but I really appreciate you coming out and taking the time to do this, Eddie. This has been really informative.
Well, Sandy, you've been a great help and a sounding board over the last few years, and I truly appreciate it. And anything that I can do to help with this group or help with anything you guys are doing, Sandy has my contact information. Just feel free to shoot me an email or even call me on my cell phone. I'll be happy to talk to you guys or whatever you need. I'm happy to try to help you with. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Eddie.
Thank you. Thank
Take
you,
care.
Lisa. Thank you, Emily. And thank you, Logan. And thank you, Sandy. Bye.
Bye. All right. And Emily and Lisa, I am happy to stick around for a few minutes if you would like, but I actually kind of need to go get my CSA share. So I think if you don't mind, we will flip to the next slide just so I can promote our next coffee chat, and then I'm gonna sign off and go do that. But yeah, just so that you know, on November 16th, which I think is a Wednesday, yes, Wednesday at 4:00, we're doing another coffee chat on the long range transportation plan and the coordinated public transit human services transportation plan, which is kind of prepared together with the long range plan. And that will be with my colleagues, Betsy Harvey and Michelle Scott, who there's a chance I myself won't be there because of some family stuff, but I may. And I'm sure both of you will be interested in that. I know this is right up your alley, Lisa. So I will throw the link to that in the chat if you give me 1 second. But it's also on our calendar and everything. So hopefully you can turn out for that. And with that, I think we can close unless you have any final points or questions. All right. Well, thanks for taking the time. Have a good night and take care.
You too.
You.
Take care. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
Sandy.
Bye.